Paul here from Warden's Farm. You know what's crazy? When you go ahead and finish up all of your honey extraction and you gotta clean the equipment. So what's the best way to do it? For me, the best way to do it is to have the bees do it. That way the bees get some nutrition out of it, and we do appreciate them cleaning up all our equipment because it's really messy and sticky. And so we're coming down the hill here on the back of the property, and we're going to show you the bees working on the frames. They're in a bit of a frenzy, so I don't know how close I can get. And I got bees and hornets landing on me right now. So we'll come over to something that's a little bit less likely to attract some bees here, but it's got just as many. And that's the extractor frame. And let's see if I can come around the other side of the tree here and maybe get a little closer look at it without getting stung. And there's quite a few bees on the frame of the extractor. But that's so cool, because the bees are getting stuff that they need during this time of the year. And coming down to the bottom here, where the extractor is, I'm going to let you take a look and see here. I'm going to come from the back side and let you listen to the camera, or to the bees in here. So here we go. So there you go, the bees are cleaning the equipment. Now, coming over here to the honey shed, there's the bees. But we're going to come into the honey shed. You can tell it's the honey shed. And the bees are flying around here just as bad. The air conditioning's on, so let me turn that off. This is what I use to clean the frames. This is a nice little extraction system. It's got some pretty cool snap-on lids. And you can see, I don't know, maybe you can, maybe you can't. It's the Hive Butler. I bought this when I got into the beekeeping, thinking it's going to be a great way to harvest honey. And to me, I think it is. Because you got this frame right there. And you can take your frames, you sit it on the screw here, you take your uncapping knife, you cut the cappings off. It goes down, it's got a little perforated bottom down in there, and that bottom allows the cappings to drain the honey into the bottom tank, and then you can get the honey out of the bottom tank. I also, when I'm extracting, I have it go through a screen. This is a double screen, it's still draining. Then I also have a mesh paint bag here. So it goes through the double screen, down through the mesh. I pull the mesh up, and then I let it just drain. And then once it's done draining, then it's time to bottle. These are the jars that I use. They're smooth face jars, and of course they're by ball. And that's just so that the labels can stick easier without having all the raised labeling on the ball jars. The next thing that you got to do after you get the honey strained in there, you got to get it into a bottling bucket. As you can see, I use a Brewer's Best bucket that I installed the honey gate on. And you take this honey and you got to get it into this bucket. And how do you do that? Well, I ordered these little things online. They're called a bucket holder, and it should help out nicely, I'm hoping. We'll see. And you can see they got little holes in here. This way you can take these other little pins here, you put it together, you snap it in, come to the other side like so, push it in, and once it's in there, this can actually go onto your bucket, and you can place this bucket into there, and you can drain the honey coming out of the bucket into this bucket. So now, let me get you all over here. So now, we're just lifting this up and draining the honey. This is from the last 8 frames, so it's a medium box. It's giving me about 2.5, close to 3 gallons. So what we'll do is we'll take the honey out of the bucket here, and we're going to pour it in the bottling bucket, and then we're going to let it just sit here and drain, and I'll cover it up with some saran wrap. And we want this to sit here and probably be set for at least 24 to 48 hours to get all the air up. The longer you let it sit, the better. So I'll let it sit here probably for about an hour to drain the honey out of the bucket. Then I'm going to seal this bucket and let it sit, and then we'll be bottling some honey in some jars. So here we are. We're going to be pouring this honey right down into the bottling bucket. That is a dark colored honey, which is great. The gate is closed and sealed. That way there's no leakage. I don't know if you can see the color of that honey, but it looks pretty fab. I'm going to set it onto this holder. Just like that. And that's what that little bucket holder does. All that honey up in this bucket will slowly drain, get down into the bottling bucket, and then we'll bottle up the last few gallons of this honey. And one of the things, so you can test the moisture of your honey, you have something here called a portable refractometer, and what it does is it looks just like this. You'll go ahead and you'll put your honey right on this sight glass, and you take it with a little dip tube, and it'll give you a reading of the water percentage in your honey. Alright, and to get the exact reading, to make sure you're getting a good reading of how much moisture is in your honey, it has a little adjustment screw right there. And that adjustment screw you can adjust. You take some distilled water, you put it on that little lens there, you close the cover on it, you look through the eyepiece, and it zeroes out. When you look through there, I don't know if I can get you to see, maybe not, nope. So when you look through there, there's a bunch of numbers on here, and it tells you just how much water is in whatever you're testing. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a little bit of this honey, pull it up in this handy dandy little tube here, and we're going to put it on the refractometer. You want to make sure you get all the air bubbles out. Let me taste it. Ooh, that's some good honey. So it's got an air bubble, there we go. So now, I don't know if you can see it, but it's got honey in there. So what you do is you look through here and it's got a little percent sign, and you want it to be, I've got to get under the light, there we go, and you want it to be 18% or less, and we're right at 17, so that's a good percentage. If for some reason this honey was above 18%, then you run the problem where it can ferment while it's in the jar, and you don't want that. You want to make sure that it's 18% or less. I like going 17%, and that way you know the bees have gone ahead and taken most of the moisture out of that honey. Here on my back deck, and I want to show you what the harvest honey looks like. This is, of course, my label, but this is the actual color of the honey. It's a much darker honey because it was harvested later in the year. And this honey is made up of a bunch of different wildflower honeys and different trees and bushes and everything, compared to the early season honey, which was harvested back in May, is this color. Of course, my label again. But this honey, when you look at the two of them side by side, is much different. This honey is mainly your tulip poplars and your dandelion honey. This was the early honey that came first in the year. This honey is the honey that's made up from all the other wildflowers and trees and everything that are out there. Both are different flavors too.